Hi guys, welcome back. This is Matt Chat, episode 545, the first Matt Chat of 2025. Thank you very much. And what a great episode it is, too. I sit down with Mr. Gabe Durham, the founder of Boss Fight Books, a series of documentary-style books about beloved classics. We talk about that series, some of the books that Gabe has contributed, but also many of the authors that he's worked with. And chances are, if you like this channel, there's going to be at least a couple, if not a few dozen of those books you're going to be interested in reading. I've read about 3 of them at this point, and they're all fantastic. We also talk about the evolution of the gaming industry, game preservation, games as service, creative stagnation, what it takes to make a great game book, like one of those boss fight books, the process behind the publishing process, and many, many, many more topics related to all this stuff. Anyway, we've got a lot to cover here, so without further ado, here is Mr. Gabe Durham.
That's me.
Well, sure. How you doing, Gabe?
I'm doing good. I'm in. I'm still in like holidays mode a little bit, which is nice to take a little time off, and gonna be heading up to Washington State tomorrow. See some family up there.
I got some family there in Seattle.
Oh yeah. Flying through
to
Seattle to Bellingham, kind of like the northwesternmost part of the state.
I guess one good thing about being in your line of work, you always have a great gift to give people.
Well, if it's the right people, yeah, it was.
And
really,
who's not the right people for this?
well, we're so niche, like. So if I can, I do it. It's just like if somebody's like, oh, my my cousin or my husband or but the cool one this holiday season was my new father-in-law is a huge MMO guy, mostly WoW, which he's just been playing consistently since the start, or maybe he's been in and out, but I mean he's an active player, and we've published our EverQuest book recently, and he dabbled in that, and there's so much in the book that's about all the cross-pollination between those 2 games, and I was like, this is a Graham book. This is good. So I had one sent over to him. Hopefully he will agree.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I got into World of Warcraft. I didn't get into EverQuest.
Yeah.
But I was curious. It's like the game that came before.
Exactly. Yeah. It like laid the foundation, and also the things that frustrated them so much about EverQuest were like allowed them to push in the other direction.
Thing, not to get too far off on this, but one thing that always struck me about this was you went from Ultima Online to EverQuest, from EverQuest to World of Warcraft. And I feel like we just got stuck there.
Yeah, it
like where's the next iteration?
Seemed at the time that it was going to be this hugely evolving thing, and you had all these other upstart companies trying to be the next one, and I feel like that's kind of a harbinger of the like games as service economy, as like what if you never stop playing Minecraft or Fortnite or like Destiny, or like if the game can keep you there, good news, it's now all you need, which is I think it's good for community and bad for maybe the medium and moving forward and trying stuff.
Yes, I never really thought about it from the developer's point of view, but yeah, that must be frustrating. Even Richard Garriott couldn't seem to get off the ground. I guess what did he call the last one he tried? Avatar, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a lack of talent for
I mean, Superstars,
but
the Conan game. And
if the player base doesn't show up, then
I guess some people might say the Fantasy one is kind of taken over.
Yes, yeah. Take 2 of Final Fantasy 14 sounds like it's a good scene.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about, for those who might not be familiar, which my guess is most people watching this will have at least one of your books, but
All right.
just in case somebody out there,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, we got these overlapping interests. So, Boss Fight Books, we've been doing this for about 11 years now. We publish books about classic video games, always nonfiction. We like to use the words documentary style because there's enough looseness in what a documentary is. It can be historical, it can be deep dive criticism, it can be the author's own personal story, and we're interested in all these different ways of telling a story and digging deep into what video games are. And we in the early days was very inspired by some of these other series about the arts, especially 33 and a third, that tackled just a single album by a band or artist. And so that's what we've been trying to do with video games all this time, is kind of narrow the subject matter to a single game, or a game within a series, and to build that out and spend an appropriate amount of time with it, instead of kind of the industry history that a lot of video game books are, that just keep moving, and tell stories across decades, instead of instead of the deep dive. So yeah, that's been what we've been up to for a long time. We just came out with that EverQuest book that I mentioned to you, and we are about to officially come out with our Untitled Goose Game book, but we're just putting it up in our store now, so people can get that book. And that's a very development history story, very Australian story of a very small group of guys who made such a great, stylish, funny game. And it does a great job of contextualizing how these guys came out of the Australian game scene, which was something that before editing this book I knew next to nothing about.
here I've talked to at least a couple of Australian developers, or maybe I'm getting them confused with New Zealanders. I probably don't want to do that.
Well, yeah, a lot of cross pollination, I'm sure.
But yeah, I think it's a really brilliant series you got. I've been reading Earthbound and Shovel Knight, and of course, Bible Adventures, which we'll get to.
Oh, cool.
But I thought the brilliant part to me, I was thinking about this because I wrote some of the early game books, like
Mm-hmm.
Dungeons and Desktops and vintage games and all that. But when I was writing these books, you couldn't just hop on Wikipedia and
Sure.
read about like where this came from, who the developers were, and all that. So it's kind of this reference function is
Mm.
completely gone now. Because I mean, you don't need to buy a book.
Oh,
You can just so easily go to Moby Games or Wikipedia to learn that. So what I like about your books is there's so much more, because you're not going to read like the Earthbound, anything like that on
right.
Wikipedia. Yes, it's about Earthbound the game, but this is not just the basic information. It's really got
Yes.
that sort of a literary. Yeah, I think that's probably the word I would go with. It's almost like this literary approach to these games.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks. Yeah, I think we're definitely striving for that, and not taking on the burden of being definitive. Sometimes they seem to come out a little bit like this is the definitive story of how the game was made, like the Shovel Knight book, or GoldenEye or NBA Jam. Some of these, but I think more often we're content to come out with the book that like only this author could write about this particular game, and kind of let it be singular and have fingerprints all over it, and just let somebody tell the story that got them excited about writing a book in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, that's like I said, it's a brilliant approach. Like the Earthbound book, just the writing in there is amazing. I feel like I really know as much about Ken now
Yeah.
about the game, but it works so well together.
Yeah.
It's just such a perfect, and like the Craddock book. I mean, I've had him on my show a couple of times talking about different projects, but
Oh, good.
just the way
Yeah.
he dives, clearly he was, I don't know how many interviews or if he knows some of the developers personally, but I mean, really strong behind the scenes
Yeah.
information in that
And
book.
that's the kind, it really, like, we couldn't have done that book without their enthusiastic participation. Those are just cool people who, and yeah, and I think they've been very good at being like out in front of their games at Yacht Club the whole time. And so that's kind of, if you are trying to tell that historical how the game got made story, um, you you need that level of openness to do a good job with it. And luckily, that's what David got, and he did a fantastic job of talking to him and talking to them, and then finding the story there.
And it kind of overlaps too with all the Kickstarter business in there, and of course your business. You could probably
Yeah.
relate a lot to that side of it.
We're telling a story about a Kickstarter in a Kickstarter funded book.
Are you still a fan of Kickstarter? Is that still going well? Or is there?
Yeah, it's been good. They're one of the companies that I continue to feel good about, even as they've grown and changed over time. Their reps are responsive. Their back end can be a little buggy for how big they are, but everything about like what they're trying to do really kind of continues to resonate with me. And there's somebody on their like publishing projects arm who I always just kind of hit up, and she's always super cool and enthusiastic. So I feel like they're somebody we'd like to continue partnering with as long as it makes sense. And I mean, the other one that we kind of stumbled into in the early days, and I've just been super happy with, is Shopify. Uh,
Oh, really?
just easy, yeah. They've just gotten better over time. They're they're a Canadian company. They've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and yet somehow seem to hang on to some core values that. So I've never worried about switching over our web store to anybody else, and so it's nice when it works, because I've got a laundry list of complaints about, of course, like Amazon and some of these other behemoths. But yeah, it's nice when there's a good one.
Yeah, they're always pulling the rug out from under people. And I work with a lot of students who have tried to make a living on selling Amazon Kindles or
Mm,
whatever they call that. A couple different iterations of it, but yeah, it
yeah.
seemed like inevitably they'll cancel that service, and now these folks are like, well, how do this is how I was making my living. What do I do now?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because that happened to us this year, and it's not something I've talked a lot about publicly, because I've just been like in it. But yeah, they shut down our Kindle store. And all our books are still available, like as paperbacks and all that. But I was putting
Oh,
up
so that's what happened. Yeah, I was wondering that because I was trying to buy those on my
yeah.
Kindle.
Yeah, every now and then I'll get an email from somebody. They're like, "Is this your decision?" I'm like, "Nope." But I still don't. I have no clarity, because they've got this. It's almost this like mafia like approach of, or like, or not. Well, let's say like more like repressive government regime, like where they're like, what you did. Like I don't need to tell you what you did, but it's wrong, and it. So I believe the charge was like intentionally misleading. I was uploading the Animal Crossing book, and I don't know if the charge is that we named the books after the games, so people might think they're buying the games, which is weird on Kindle because you can't buy games on Kindle. But
Uh,
I've heard rumblings that they're trying to appease Nintendo. But anyway, that's just a that's a little inside baseball for the upset. Luckily, that's not like a huge part of our business, and I think maybe, fingers crossed, it's getting resolved by the fact that we're about to engage in a distribution partnership with Simon and Schuster, and they're just a
hmm.
much bigger fish than we are, or any other book distributors we worked with before. So it's like, maybe I was talking to the guy of their like third party distribution guy who built that up, and he thinks he's like, once they're dealing with us, it's not going to be like that anymore. So all good
Our
news.
boys talk to their boys. It's just bizarre to me though. So they're worried that somebody might buy Animal Crossing thinking they're getting the game and it's the book. I mean, that's
Yeah,
hard
which
to
is
imagine somebody being in that.
yeah, it's I mean, like, if it's physical goods, I could almost understand, but the fact that it's ebooks, and we're selling like an EPUB file, I don't know. I don't know.
That
But
okay for me because you actually are quite cheaper than
mm,
most ebooks that I found. I went just directly to your website and
oh, cool.
it was like I think $5. So I'm like, well, heck, I might as well
Yeah.
buy 3 or 4 of them. I mean, I might as well
Oh,
stock
awesome.
up.
Yeah, yeah, we've like gone up a little on the newer ones, but trying to keep it cheap for the people. We want to get read more than anything. What can feel weird is we just finished up a Humble Bundle, and that's like almost all of our books, and that's really cheap. It's the ebook versions, but it's weird to watch, my decade plus career summed up in a $18 Humble Bundle.
Oh wow, is that up right now?
No, it's done. But we'll do it again sometime.
We can show it when we. I see there's one called Video Game Histories. Is that an older one? Yeah, that's old.
Could be. Yeah.
Oh, raised $12,000.
Mm,
I was just looking at that.
yeah. Nice.
Yeah, that's but I'd never done that before. Why I bought an ebook off a website, and I got the file, forget the file format, but it gave me instructions on how to upload it to the Kindle.
Nice. Yeah.
I kind of imagined this as being this laborious process, but it was so simple.
Oh, good. Yeah. It's Kindle, they used to have their proprietary format, and now they've discontinued that, and they just use EPUBs like everybody else. So that's a good thing they did.
There we go.
There's a compliment.
Well, let's get into Bible adventures then. I did come prepared. I thought we could adventure through.
Oh, wow. The original Bible adventures.
The old KGV. Yeah, this book is a great example of like learning about the author.
Yeah.
Sometimes as interesting as the game, and I found, well, actually, Gabe, we got a lot in common.
Oh, did you grow up Christian?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
I'd imagine a lot of your readers probably have that similar experience.
Yeah, it's fun to talk to people who can, kind of see their own childhoods in that book.
I don't think we had to have a Nintendo, but I could so imagine. My grandmother was the one that was really super Christian and always going to the Christian bookstores and stuff. And she'd always be like, "Oh, you're gonna be so excited! I got you some comics." Comics, oh boy, Man, Spider-Man, no, it's like,
no, not those guys.
Some other kind.
Do you remember what they were called? These comics?
Oh, geez, it wasn't the Chick Tracks. We also had those, but these were like regular comics, comic size. I can't remember the names. They weren't part of my cherished. Although ironically, they're probably worth more than all the other stuff. But
the main thing I remember.
You remember what the titles are? I might be able to remember.
Oh yeah, I would go straight for the music section at the Christian bookstore because that was at the height of, especially when I was like 13, 14, and started going to like the Christian punk and ska shows after I moved to California. It was such a scene that I was trying to keep up, and looking at all the Tooth and Nail Records releases and getting into Supertones, Five Iron Frenzy, Slick Shoes, all these bands that some of whom found ways to like retain some flavor and kind of be a real band, and others where it just felt like this is the Christian version of existing better music.
Yeah, I remember those. I remember going to a free concert at a college one time I was visiting, and there was like this death metal.
The free concerts, the dangerous one.
Yeah, and like we're listening to this death metal. Of course, you can't ever understand the lyrics anyway, So you're like, oh. And then this guy was walking around with these little Bibles, and can I talk to you about whether you're saying, well, whatever the spiel was. And I thought that he was like this kind of protesting, kind of a thing, like you 30 people here to listen to death metal. And then we find out, no. This is Christian death metal.
This whole thing exists so that this can happen. I was always curious about like how those bands kind of squared the the guttural screaming with that if it was just kind of worshipy content. Like, why so angry? if they have found the truth that gives them eternal salvation.
That's a good point. I remember one of the bands said that every one of their lyrics was a direct quote from the Bible.
Wow.
So I don't know if they were. It's lots of it. Maybe they hit the Book of Revelation pretty hard.
Yeah, just go hard into the. I feel like there could be a good like Book of Revelation psychedelic band. You just like submit yourself to the imagery and.
Easily. It's pretty far out stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Bible. The reason I bring it up is I could so imagine my grandmother seeing that display you were talking about
Mm,
with the NES. The here your kid can play Bible adventures,
yeah. Yeah,
and it's
check
just
out
I would have bought
that old
that.
commercial, by the way. It's on YouTube.
But he said it wasn't really that bad of a game, right? It was actually pretty fun. Maybe it doesn't deserve the kind of vilification it gets
Well,
sometimes.
yeah. I mean, it's not gonna make any like top NES games lists, but I think, what I point out in the book is, most games were kind of bad back then. I mean, they certainly weren't like Super Mario Brothers 3 quality. You just had all these platformers and roam around games, and they were often pretty inscrutable, and you tried to have fun as best you could.
Yeah, people forget about all that terrible,
Oh, here we go.
all those terrible games. This was I
Isn't that fun that there's
don't know.
this like
I just had
Steam
it was really
availability that
descriptions of
you found here? It's like people could buy them today if they want to.
it doesn't look bad at all.
Yeah, yeah, for the time, I think it was fine. It was
I don't know if
it's
they had
it
the baby Moses on here. That was the
it's
part I was looking for, though.
yeah. Oh yeah, that one of them was, but it was when they got to the next generation. They're like, good news, you got Bible Adventures, and now it's for Sega Genesis. And there's like a little bit of upresing, but the seams are starting to show, and eventually it's falling apart because it takes more people to make a good 16-bit game, and then it takes more people to make a 32-bit game. And by then, you can't have these scrappy little teams anymore. You have to really hire people and invest, and then yeah, just niche content like that wasn't quite as popular, or wasn't quite as possible in that round. Um, I don't know. I think it could come, yeah, or it kind of has come back into like indie game revolution now, and Steam makes a lot possible, and those tools are. It's obviously very possible for certain talented people to make a game with like 1 to 5 good people, but that wasn't so for a long time.
Yeah, that's the dream. It's always been my dream. Back to
Yeah.
that point where just one person. I always envied novelists.
Hmm.
It's really just one person can sit down and write just as good of a novel as any other novel out there. You don't have to have this huge team and
Yeah.
huge and everything.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
always wish I wish games could be like that.
Yeah. Although, I envy the like camaraderie, especially like running this company by myself, being like a guy on a laptop in his living room.
Hmm.
When my wife goes off to her offices, I'm like, offices. That sounds nice.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about Bible Adventures that I don't think I had the story quite straight in my head about how this worked. I thought that I knew that there was some issues with Nintendo
Mm,
not wanting unauthorized products, the whole quality
yeah.
seal of approval. So I always thought there was more to this story. But I guess the
Yeah.
reality is they just didn't care or didn't even know it existed.
Well, they pretended not to know it existed. They
So they
certainly knew it
pretended not to
existed.
know.
Yeah, yeah. It was because, Nintendo was at that time taking on these other companies. Most famously Tengen, which was, a subsidiary of Atari. They made unlicensed versions of their games like Tetris, and were trying to sell those in stores. And eventually,
Better
they
version.
did get very tricky, and they uh, got a patent from Nintendo, from the patent office, for the Nintendo on false pretenses, and you can look all this stuff up, and I do talk about it in the book a little bit, and so they got sued for that, and probably rightfully so, because that was pretty schemy. But the rest of the time, you had these companies kind of trying to figure out their own workarounds without knowing the exact software and hardware, what's going on in the NES, and what the first Color Dreams and then Wisdom Tree folks figured out is a well-placed voltage spike will short out the 10 nest chip that checks to see if it's a licensed game temporarily, just long enough to
Hmm,
get into the game and to play it on an NES. And they built their whole their whole business on that.
a miracle. So
Yeah,
I couldn't
yeah,
couldn't resist.
yeah.
Yeah, Lewis is a great book. I think everybody should take a look at this. and it's just Bible adventures. I did have some questions some folks about your choices of covers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me
Yeah,
see if
yeah.
I can get the cover up here. But yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit about how you choose. Hey, here we go.
Yeah,
Cover
sure.
images.
So, it's
Oh,
always
here's the
like,
one. This one makes sense because of the stacking.
yeah, yeah, you got the animal stack there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I still have a lot of
that makes
affection
perfect
for that
sense.
one. Yeah, we try to find some real world object that evokes something in the game. And so that's kind of been the look the whole time. And to have this kind of minimalist approach, I think like part of it was, how do we stand out in a crowded market of video game stuff? And we just didn't see a lot of that at the time in video game media. Was that kind of thing. And so Ken Bauman was our original, who wrote the Earthbound book that you read. He was our also our original cover designer, and so he'd seen some books that he liked that kind of played with something like that, and so he kind of put together that concept, and I liked it. And then eventually Corey Schmitz kind of iterated on that and created that colored, like monochromatic look that all of our recent books have. Um, so this is kind of cool. Here, if you want me to break a little news, we started doing some variants of we needed to print some new copies of some books.
Mhm.
So Jack Grimes and I were emailing about, well, what if we did some versions of, so if your readers can, so this is like the new version of the Kingdom Hearts book that I just got
Oh, variant
partial
covers.
version. Yeah. So it's basically like some of the older books in the newer style. I mean, this is the same uh, ice pop that's on the original one, but now it's on this like all blue version. We did this Metal Gear Solid Red version of this one. Again, it's the same art, but kind of new
Yeah.
color. And then
Looks
finally we got the Chrono Trigger book is this like
there.
dark like charcoal brown of the hedgehog. So
That's awesome.
yeah, we're having
Do
fun
some,
with it.
you can do some
Um,
foil and some hologram covers eventually.
oh yeah, I want to do more like special edition hardcover type stuff. We had a really good reason to do it for the GoldenEye book, and we tried that. It went over well. People liked that, especially because we had a lot of cool visual content that the developers gave us to put in the book. So I'm just kind of looking out for other opportunities to
Scratch
do
and
that.
snuff stickers.
Scratch and sniffs. Yeah,
I
just
forgot.
like
I
yeah,
forgot those things.
just like the big Earthbound box.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, yeah, that's so playful.
I don't know
It's
how
so
many.
a toy.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, folks, this is why you need to read these books.
That's right.
So here's a question for you, Gabe.
Hmm.
What's the first book on video games you read that you felt took the medium seriously?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the way that's worded.
I felt really inspired by Tom Bissell's book. Did you read that one? This would be a
What's
little
the name?
before boss fight started. Extra Lives. Um, it's a
Yeah, I got that. Well,
collection
that's
of essays that he wrote, and he's yeah, this is
my video
before
game.
he had his own started his own career of like working in games and writing for some games. But he's just a great mind. I mean, he's such a smart guy. He's a real writer. He's kind of a writer's writer, and so this is one that broke through. The two I think his two biggest books are this one, and then the Disaster Artist, which became the James Franco, Dave Franco movie about the room. Um, and yeah, I just think he's brilliant. I think his opinions about games have evolved over time, and he's basically said overtly like I don't really want to write about that stuff anymore. His interests kind of move around, but I mean, yeah, he's great. So I think like reading that was really cool. I remember also around that time, it was just like a one off, but one of my favorite novelists is Nicholson Baker, and he wrote an article for the New Yorker about playing uh, various like shooters with his son, and there's something about that too that was it was just applying all the classic like faculties, all the skills to this medium. And so seeing that was really cool. You know, other stuff. I remember when I was starting to reach out to authors in the early days, I was kind of looking around like, okay, well, who would be good? And one of the books I came across was Anna Anthropy's book, Rise of the Video Game Zinesters, and that's what kind of convinced me to offer her a
Rise of the
book, which
video
became
games zinsters.
yeah, yeah. And I really love it's like it's a book for the people. It's about like how individuals can create their own games in more of a like truly indie um style in the way that people used to make zines in the 90s. And so, you know, she's
Ah,
probably about my age, and so kind of remembering those scenes, you know, yeah, people, how people you like are taking back an art form. um so, you know, I love that kind of populist approach of like, yeah, yeah, no, you can do this. And
I
like,
haven't pulled up another my reading list even. I love
yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, so I'm sure some of the tools that she talks about in that book are have changed a little, but the ethos of it is still great.
I'll show you a couple of mine while I got this up here.
Yeah, yeah, show me.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites.
Oh, okay. You know, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, Nick Montfort. He's he's on another book with Ian Bogost,
Oh yeah,
but this one's all about the text adventure games. And I just thought it was really fun book. Well, while you were
that's
talking, I was
cool.
thinking about this one too. This is a novel.
This is another one I don't know. Lucky No Wonder Boy.
This is a guy, I think he's the one that adapted the Game of Thrones novels for the television show,
Really?
but he's also done
Oh, wow.
this novel where he's got a game in there called Wonder Boy.
Oh,
But
that's
I thought
cool.
that was a pretty neat, just a couple of my favorites.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think it's like important to have these like kind of signposts of people who are like, no, you can really like either like employ all the like usual critical faculties that have been developed over centuries, you know, to music and to theater and to novels, and to apply them to games is so important. And I think for me, like, you know, one of the things that like I took from the best ones is they're constantly like citing other works that have nothing to do with video games. And so it's like creating this big tent culture instead of like, we are gamers, we only like games, we only reference games, and
Right.
the best person who knows the most about the most games is the winner of being a good critic. I don't agree with that at all. I think being a critic is a lot about curiosity. It's a lot about playfulness. It's a lot about putting in the work about whatever topic you've chosen to write about, and just really explore the hell out of it. So, but yeah, to me, you know, kind of remembering that there's a huge world out there, and also, you know, trying to be a really like omnivorous art consumer myself. Yeah, I think it helps. That's kind of helped create the press that I wanted to see.
I'll just give one example from I think this was from Earthbound.
Mm,
He was talking about this book, Bluettes.
yeah, poetry.
Like, wow, this book of poetry. So people, I like so many things go off in my head at once. Like, wow, so I'm reading this book about Earthbound from like the authors read this
Mm,
book of poetry. I never even heard of this before, so
yeah,
I had to look it up. And wow,
pretty
people
well
are
read
now
for a book of
publishing
poetry.
poems. So this
Over
is like
50,000 ratings on
I mean,
Goodreads.
holy cow.
That folks, that's unusual for a book of poetry. So
Oh, it's amazing.
I have meant to read this book ever since Ken's book. So you're
I
reminding
want
me
to buy
here.
this book and just have it sitting around in my office. So when people would come by, I'm like, oh yeah, I heard about this in this book I read about video games.
I mean, I hope so, you know, like I would love, you know, I'd also love for like ours to be like the book that somebody who hasn't read a book in a while reads, and then they're like, oh shit, books are good, you know, and just kind of be a gateway drug to one of the greatest art forms there's ever been.
I can see that. That is a worthy goal. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an English professor, but yeah,
Yeah.
it might have something to do with it.
What kind of stuff are you teaching these days?
Well, I do have a class about game studies.
Cool.
do a lot of narrative focused games.
Yeah. Nice.
I think I might see if I can slip in a couple of your books into the
Oh, awesome.
onto the
Yeah,
syllabus, or at least recommend them if
I
people want
love the idea of getting into the classroom.
to. Well, yeah, like just I don't think most. I mean, the people that take that class, they're well aware, but people
Yeah.
that are don't know as much, they just. I think a lot of people still have this simplistic idea about games, and they it's just a waste of time. We should be doing
Sure.
something else. And I'm like, no, there's all these. There's a lot of literary and artistic stuff that we're not still playing. Nothing wrong with it, but we're not still playing Space Invaders, or whatever it is there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's there's so much potential, for ambition and I think like more often than not they are mostly a commercial product, but then sometimes they're just somebody's weird vision and when that happens and you feel like, oh, this is an artist, then it's very exciting. Um, the one that we got coming out soon that's really like making the case for a game as art. Well, I've got my stack of stuff we just got from the printers. This is not out yet, and we don't have like copies, but we have. So this is our next book that
Oh,
will be coming out shortly. The Outer Wilds book, and Tommy Wallach, the author, he really holds games to a high standard, and he feels like most of them just do not make it, and he's pretty tough on a lot of games. But this one, he loves, and he makes such a strong case for it as art, and like the things that it does to merge story and gameplay that seem to be solving problems that have existed for decades,
hmm.
uh, that he kind of wants to see other games kind of take this on and learn from it. So yeah, I don't know, that's an example of somebody who really I admire about Tommy. Like he really wants to see the medium move forward, and it frustrates him when it doesn't. But then when he has something to celebrate, he can write a whole book about it.
I think the role of the role of your series could have a big impact on that, because I was just thinking with all the works of literature, people they might be good in and of themselves, but it's really the criticism that builds up around those works. And I don't
Yeah,
mean criticism and then like people hating on it, but you know what I
yeah.
mean, like
No, yeah,
engaging
no,
the
yeah.
reader
Just
about it. And sometimes their essays about the novel or the play or whatever might actually be more better known than the actual work sometimes. But it really plays
yeah.
an important role. And I've just been waiting forever. Like, when are games going to get this kind of treatment? And here we are.
Yeah, well, good. And yeah, I mean, I think that there are some of these books that like I hope people who haven't played the game don't feel the need to have played the game. Outer Wilds is one like I kind of hope you do play the game first because because it gets into like pretty spoilery, like super interesting stuff that but for a lot of them I think it's like they're talking about something that is just inherently interesting. I mean, I think including like my Bible Adventures book, it's like, do you need to play Bible Adventures? No, not really. I think, you can just watch a little bit of video of it and, read about it. In some ways, the story of the thing is the thing.
Hmm.
Uh, and, I think of like Jarrett Kobach's Soft and Cuddly book and or Brock Wilbur and Nathan Rabin's Postal book. It's like some of these games are like troubled to a point where it's like you can have a lot to say about something and not be kind of propping it up as one of the great works of a medium.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I definitely agree that I think people would like how to put this. So you could read your book Bible Adventures and enjoy it without ever having seen the game.
Hmm.
I would hate to think that people wouldn't buy a book. Well, I don't have that game. I never even heard of that game, so I'll just move on to the next one. I hope
Yeah,
that people don't get that idea, because I think these books are meant to be enjoyed regardless, right?
we really try. Like, that's one of the things that like I'd say to authors at the beginning is like, I really don't want this to be for hardcores only. I really want somebody who doesn't really know a lot about this to be able to come in and make sense of it. And, oh, and one cool thing from this year. So my mom recently retired, and she's, yeah, I mean, she's still so sharp, and she has a lot of like energy and a lot of intellect that she needs to put to herself. So she's been doing a couple of reads on forthcoming books, and she is not a gamer at all, but she's super interested, super engaged, and she's asking all the right questions. And if she doesn't get something, that's a problem, and she marks it. So I think to have someone like her who's just not of the scene at all come in and like really try to make sense of a work about a game, it's good for the book.
Hmm. That is,
Shout out to the
hmm.
pitch for Kathy Durham.
Yeah, there we go.
The editor. Yeah.
Well, can we get a little bit into the behind the scenes,
Yeah.
with the publishing and the pitching process? And
Sure.
some folks wanted to know what are some common mistakes you see in the book proposals?
Yeah, that's a great
So
question. I mean, I'll say that
there's some other questions. I'll just throw this in while
yeah.
you're thinking about that.
Oh, yeah.
They're also wondering about what you do, or how the I guess the publication process works. The drafts sent back and forth.
Oh, sure.
How does the editing look like?
Yeah.
Basic stuff.
Yeah, I could talk about that in either order. Yeah, so as for the pitch process, we do an open reading period. I really like getting books from pitches in part because it kind of shows like a level of engagement, that the person is bringing to it. It also like allows me not to mostly pick the topics of our books myself, and that's kind of was something that was important to me early on, because it's more important to me that like somebody has a topic that can sustain them as a writer to make a great book than it does for me to like put out a list of like the most I don't want this to just be a like the best games of all time list, but something more personal. And so yeah, so when we do these pitch periods, I mean, to be honest with you, like so many of them are really good, and we cannot take all of the good ones, and that's always like there's so much hand wringing. I got like a small team of readers who help me go through all the pitches and decide, and we're really like rooting for people, and and when we get toward the end, there's when we're if we're taking we've been taking more in the last couple of periods. We took like 10 pitches the last two of them, which is pretty cool to have so many books in production. But there's another 20 that it's like we easily could have taken. So that's tough. But I guess what I'd say is like I think some people kind of assume that we already know a ton about like what makes this game worthy of a book, and I want them to tell me, even if I think I know. I want them to tell me, because like their take is the take that the book will be. And I think the other thing is like I am I think I think some people just sort of like underestimate how much it matters to like draw us in with your prose, and just be a really great, playful, interested, curious writer, have a voice, have a perspective, and kind of honestly like hold the game a little more lightly usually, like not to be so because some pitches can be a little bit dogmatic and just like I am out to prove to you that this game is one of the best games and here are my reasons, and it's like, well, yeah, and that can be compelling, and sometimes that's all you want, but I think an exploration is usually closer to what we're into, and kind of an openness to experience, and even like well, people often wind up saying, like this book, here are the things that I'm excited to explore. That might change once I'm actually exploring, and to which I always say like, well, good, because like the writing of a book always, to me, always ought to be an exploration. That's what's so exciting about it, is having things that you think have potential, and then getting in there and reading and interviewing and writing and kind of finding out more about what you think and playing the game some more. And so, where you end up is not where you started. And I don't know, I wouldn't have that any other way.
That reminds me a little bit of that new games journalism movement from
Yeah.
back in the, I don't remember, when was that? Was that early 2000s or late 90s?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, early. I mean,
I remember getting really
like
excited
20, like
about,
around 2010 kind of thing.
because that's exactly what it was. It was like, we're not just going to tell you about the break down the gameplay mechanics or tell you about whether this game is worth buying or not. You're gonna try to approach this the
Yeah.
way, authors and writers, would approach this. And yeah, I was thinking about maybe your ideal audience for these books, somebody that likes to read a lot of stuff and also likes games, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really
So they're
like
well
that's the Venn
read and
diagram. I think
yeah.
that's why our readers are so nice a lot of the time. Like we kind of avoid all the, or not all of it, but like a lot of the shittiness of game culture just sort of doesn't touch us because, people who suck don't read books. Um, and there are people who read books
Cappuccino and
and also suck, but like I don't know, it's just a nice set. It's a good bunch of people, and and then when we do meet people at conventions, like we go to the Portland Retro Games Expo. This year I'm tabling at San Diego Comic-Con, which I'm really excited
oh,
about.
cool.
People are just like nice and excited, and it's families and it's fans, and people are like enjoying pursuing things in their hobbies, and you get to talk to people about games and have fun. So,
I've always kind of struggled to balance the two because I love both, obviously. But I don't want people, I resist that idea of games being a waste of time or, not something only stupid people do. But not saying you're saying that, but that's the stereotype that I try to react against. But I also like I do see a lot of value in just kicking back with a book, and it distresses me that so many people seem to lack the patience even to, really sit down and read a book. And man, I I would hate to imagine my life without both, really. I think you're muted somehow, Gabe.
yeah, am I there?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay.
Mhm.
The cat came by, so let's blame him.
Oh, the cat.
Yeah. Um, well, I totally agree. And well,
I don't
now my
know if we
brain
were
is on
going anywhere.
now my brain is on Mike. So, oh, but I guess like I will say that like sometimes have to have little periods of time where I'm putting games away because they're so stimulating and they're often so fun. It's just it can be it's a different like pace of the brain than reading, which like requires a lot of space and a lot of stillness. And I really treasure that space. And I find that there's times when I have trouble getting into it, especially if I've been digging into some good games. So I
Hmm.
think like I think there's like sort of a useful tension there in like games and books because what they are doing for us and to us are so different and they're related, but it's like the old and the new colliding, the slow and the fast. They're just the way they light up our brains is so different. And there's such big strengths to both. So
It's really fast. You might be a good person to ask about something that's always I've never quite worked out how I feel about it, but there are certain games like Torment Tides of Numenera
I haven't
comes to
played.
mind. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
Mm-mm.
But there's lots and lots of text in the game.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff to read. And always, even though I read novels, I love all that stuff. Somehow, I don't really like the big chunks of text. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's just because the
I'm more
text is.
like
Is
you.
it because it's not well written? Is it just I'm not used to this? This is the wrong medium for it. I mean, what is that?
I think probably we are trained that also is the cat. I think we are trained by games being poorly written to speed past text. And so when you find yourself in a game where the text is really important and it's ambitious on the level of a great book, you kind of need to reacclimate to it. Be like, oh, this is one where the story is really important and where I should, pay attention and not skip past. Um, because so much of the, and I don't even necessarily mean that as a knock on games. Sometimes story is just a little bit of light theming that goes over some mechanics that we love. And I think that's totally fine. I'm most of the time with games, I'm a mechanics guy. It's the, playing the game is the thing that games can do that other mediums can't. And we have such a like hundreds of years of history of great literature, and that's pretty hard. Just on a quality of writing level, that's pretty hard to uh, contend with, as a developer. And a lot of the first developers were engineer types, and they were people who really were great at numbers, great at coding. They had some stories that they were interested to tell, but that wasn't really like where they were coming from. And so I don't know. I think it's more and more often you see really good writing, but I think if you're like me and you've been playing games for a long time, you're kind of often skipping past until you get to a point you're like, oh, uh-oh. And then maybe you might even need to go back. I mean, that was kind of my experience with Outer Wilds. We were just talking about, that's it. Like the story and the writing it's not only good to enjoy, it actually is paying attention to it is required if you want to get anywhere in the game. But you're paying attention on a level that is really rare. Like games do not usually ask as much of you. So yeah, it's like a reorienting that
Yeah, it's
has to
like
take
the
place.
games themselves have kind of acclimated us or trained us that way, right? Oh, we can just skip that. We were talking
Yeah,
about World of Warcraft earlier, and I always joke with my friends when we're playing about who actually sits and reads the quest text.
yeah,
Yeah, you skip down and you're like, oh, I need to kill 12 sheep or whatever. But,
yep,
I don't know if that's the fault of the game or writing or just, I think it is kind of what we're saying here. It's just the conventions that we've been trained.
yeah. But it's like what that I don't know, like the probably the like quote unquote text that is important in World of Warcraft is what you are saying to your friends or to people you have
Mhm.
been teamed up with while you're playing together, right? And so like anything that like the game does, like okay, there could be some cool lore from time to time, but I don't get the sense that that's what people are really like going to it for so much as like the self creation of storyline and strategy, like as you're moving through the game. But I'm also not really an MMO guy. It seems very dangerous to me. I think I would get so hooked, and so I've just stayed away from it out of a sense of self-preservation.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
In recent years, I am just such a card game guy, and so like Balatro was a huge one, but like roguelike deck builders are just. I had no idea I had this like capacity in me, but like Slay the Spire has just become one of my all timers, and there's other ones that pop up from time to time. I just started playing on PlayStation, one called Rogue Book, I think it's called. Uh, it's
Rogue
really
book.
good. I think is it Rogue Book? My apologies if I have that totally wrong.
Right.
But they're like marrying the lessons of Spelunky and these other roguelike games with the fun of playing a card game and building it out every time and having so much chance, so much. Yep, there it is, Rogue Book. Yeah, it's the reason I
Richard
found it is just
Garfield's part of this. Wow.
oh, that's interesting. I didn't notice that. Yeah, no wonder the mechanics are good. And it does have some magic stuff. It also clearly took a lot of inspiration from Slay the Spire, which to me is a nice thing. But I've been watching this genre thriving, uh, and so to see how big Balatro hit this year was really nice for me because I think it means we're going to be getting a lot more of these.
There was, I was a big fan of the Might and Magic series, and there was a
Oh
card
yeah,
game that they introduced in some of those. I just I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
yeah, like with Live Again.
Yeah, within the game, but I think it
Oh,
was
that's
such a
cool.
popular like feature of the game, they spun it off and it's to its own dedicated game. But
Yeah,
I don't have a
apparently,
lot of experience. Maybe I'm missing out. Sounds like I should explore this card genre.
yeah, apparently there's one in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that's like very good within the game. Um, haven't played it myself, but that yeah, if you're gonna build out a very ambitious mini game, like I'm there for it. That's great.
Can I ask you a couple last questions?
Oh yeah, of course.
I was wondering if you had come across digital eclipses stuff at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just had them on not too long ago, and we were talking about that making of Karateka.
Oh, awesome. Who are you talking to on that?
Oh, who was?
Oh, didn't you talk to Meshner at some point?
Yeah, I did talk to him,
Cool.
but I talked to the Digital Eclipse people too.
Yeah. So Chris Kohler is one of our authors. He wrote the Final Fantasy V book.
Stephen Frost and Ian Sherman.
Okay, great. Very cool. Yeah,
Really-
I
They're
have
they're really passionate about
I have a lot of respect for what they're doing because they're packaging the games themselves, like really, lovingly making those nice and available, and then they're giving this like beautiful history lesson that's like fun to watch and read, and like just it's like this multimedia experience that uh it feels like the closest thing to a kind of Criterion Collection special edition like we've ever had.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I had Jordan on. He was fantastic.
He seems like a really sharp guy.
He's got a great graphic novel.
Oh yeah.
You probably read that one. If you haven't, you should check it out. I think you'd like it.
Yeah, did I think I did read it. And he's
Yeah, what
got
was it called?
that, and and some of the stuff that he's done since like Karateka and Prince of Persia was really ambitious too. Like not all of it has hit in the same
Replay.
way, but what's it?
Yeah, here's his graphic novel.
Yes. I
And this
think
kind
that
of fits
yeah,
in with the
yeah.
theme of our episode. I feel like because it's about the making of a game, but there's so much more going on, like the memoir and the philosophical stuff and the history, the politics. I mean, it's pretty deep.
That's so cool. You know what? No, I read like a little excerpt of this online, but I haven't. Yeah, I'm sure I would love this. Yeah, I've heard that it's heavier on the history, that memoir of an uprooted family. So it's not as
Oh,
much games as people might expect, but
yeah,
some
it'll
I think
tear
there's
you
a
up.
lot there. Oh, really? Yeah. Ah,
It's sad. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to
yeah.
spoil anything about it, but it's pretty powerful.
Is he the artist on that too?
I think so. Yeah,
Cool. Yeah.
I hate to be mistaken on that, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, that's impressive.
But yeah, he put a lot of thought even in like the colors and the different styles of the
Yeah.
what the text looks in there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
tell the
He
guy's
had
just he's one of those people operating at like a couple higher levels.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. Yes.
Just trying to keep up.
Yeah, just
That's a
trying to.
good feeling though. Like, oh, I'm in the presence of someone pretty special here. I think, yeah, so Digital Eclipse is doing great stuff. The Tetris collection looks awesome. I haven't played it yet. And then yeah, I mean, but even like certain I've been loving seeing like these Castlevania collections coming out, and certain companies like are clearly like investing in their past, and then putting it back together in a way that is really appealing. Yeah, I remember playing that first Castlevania collection during the pandemic and just kind of making my way through games that were always too hard for me, seeing levels that I had never gotten to before because just making flagrant use of the rewind mechanic.
Remember you talked about that a little bit in Bible Adventures. The games were too hard for you to see much of the. You kind of wanted the
Yeah,
ones where you could do the cheat codes. That's something I
yeah,
never thought about was like Contra. You could do the code and then you could see the whole game.
yeah, that was
Whereas
huge.
if you got the one without couldn't use the code, good luck. You're probably only going to
Yeah.
see the first couple minutes.
Well, Game Genie was a revelation for that stuff.
Yeah, but that's a whole element. I think it's a whole argument for those game genies type of things that I'd never heard or even thought about before. But it let people see the content.
Right. It's like you could kind of break the game and do really strange things, or you could just get 99 lives, like the Contra
All
scenario.
right. Well, thanks, Gabe, for taking some time
Oh yeah, this is great.
about all this stuff. Do you have any well, you've already talked about, I guess, Outer Wilds.
Yeah, we got Outer Wilds,
Are
and
there other ones that are coming out soon or
yeah,
that
the
are
one
hype?
that's coming out this month is the Untitled Goose Game book, and then we've got the DDR book coming after that, and that just and a lot of cool stuff in development. We're going to be announcing some more this year and trying to put stuff out at a faster clip. It's always a little challenging because I'm just the one guy trying to wear a lot of hats. But I do have a lot of really talented people working with me at different stages, and that's been very cool to kind of build up a roster of great editors and layout and cover designers and the like over time.
Do you review everything yourself, or do you have a panel that you
Yeah,
send stuff to?
I do work on every book. Yeah. I'm too neurotic not to. I think it would feel really strange to me to make it through an entire book process and not do. Sometimes I do multiple edits on a book, and I'm one of the ones working really hard on it. We've got one right now that I've been working on where it's just been in really good hands with several other people. And the author's very talented too, and so I think it showed up in decent shape even the first time. But by the time it made it to me for this final edit, I'm like, this is really good. And like so to be like this late in the process, it's kind of a new feeling for me, and I love it.
I know exactly what you mean. And when had that Armchair Arcade website, if you I don't know if you remember that one, goes way back.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
we would we had a group of editors, and we would always kind of struggle because you don't want to be so heavy-handed. And it happened a couple of times, right? And we send somebody's manuscript back, and they're like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, I don't even recognize this anymore.
Yeah.
Screw you guys," you know.
Yeah. Uh,
But
that's
you're
tough.
trying to elevate it in your mind. You're just trying to make it better, right? But I mean, trying to be diplomatic. There's a whole skill set of being an editor that has nothing to do with writing.
Yeah,
It's
I agree.
like
And
being
I think different people,
mediating.
yeah, different people are kind of like on different stages of that journey, like in terms of like receiving feedback. And I think, some of us have just been kind of in that world for a long time. And it's like, well, I'm gonna hand this off to my friend and they're gonna massacre it and hand it back to me. And it's just kind of like it's what we do because we are all in agreement that like the best, result is the most important thing. And it's not to say like nothing ever stings, but you know what you're in for and you know what the goal is. And so, but if you haven't done as much of that, well, maybe that's going to be a harder pill to swallow. But I don't know. I mean, I think like what I what I tell myself over time is like, well, been doing this a long time, and I'm on good terms with with the writers still, and I think like that sense of like shared mission and really wanting to put out something great, really helps. And there's always, something to preserve in early drafts too that you're like, oh, this is what's driving the book, and this is what we need to like keep steering it toward. So
Really awesome. I'll just show you the website here, folks, if you want to check this out.
yeah,
Plenty of books.
there's that lizard. It's our EverQuest book there.
Oh, Day of the Tentacle.
Yeah.
I keep seeing new ones that I want to. Oh, yeah, that's what you were talking about, right? The deluxe hardcover.
Yeah. So that's our first time experimenting with that. And like I said, we want to do more. That's a really cool experience.
I'm kind of surprised. I thought book publishers preferred to do hardcovers because they don't you make a little more money on the hardcovers than the
Yeah, but
paper.
what you're forgetting is I'm not a good businessman.
Yeah, I remember the publishers I worked with that I was asking them about this, like, why do you want to do a hardcover? I mean, it
Mm.
looks great and everything, but it's going to be like $60. They're like, yeah, Matt, it's a little thing called profit.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think that's
you don't
right.
make any money on the paperbacks. If you're selling the paperback copy for $10 or whatever, you're not making the. So I'm like, I'd never thought about it as a business person.
Yeah, I think that's true. No, yeah, the margins are definitely better with hardcover. It's just I don't know. I think like when I look at like the other people who are doing something like
I
what
got
we're
Baldur's
doing,
Gate too.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Great,
God,
great book by the novelist Matt Bell.
I gotta get this one.
Yeah. Oh, that's another one where I'm like, the I will be excited to try out a variant on this cover in the style of the old ones.
There's Boo. I guess that's Minsk and Boo.
Minsk and Boo? Yeah. Yeah,
Oh, that's
that's who's
Boo
being
too.
implied. It's actually just
Oh,
a
I
real hamster and a
love
little
this.
figurine.
So who's the author? Matt Bell. He
Matt
said
Bell. Yeah, he's a great writer. He wrote this other book that's been helpful for me, where he wrote a craft book called
He
Refuse.
teaches creative writing.
Yeah, yeah. His book's called
Oh,
Refuse to be Done. I found it really inspiring. It's just about writing and just like drafting the hell out of a book and trying to do like everything you can do to make it as good as possible. Um, just yeah, yeah. It was really cool. I read that just before I embarked on a new novel project myself. So
yeah, I like to read. This is a whole fun genre too. This the books about writing books.
yeah, yeah,
I was just
yeah.
working on one called the Anatomy of a Story, I think, or Anatomy of Fiction, something like that.
Oh yeah.
That's really good.
You were teaching that?
No, it's just I was just reading the book.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
We do have a project in my game studies class where they make a game with twine.
Oh, nice.
So I was trying to come up with the way to like it's not a creative writing class per se, but I wanted to teach a little bit about like here's a plot and here's some
Yeah.
characters. You want to have
If
some
yeah,
conflicts and stuff. So I was
if you're
kind of
teaching twine, it's a creative writing class, at least during that project,
well, don't tell the creative writing professor that.
right?
They'll be like, "You're on my
Yeah.
turf, sir. You're on my
Yeah.
turf."
Yeah. I was such like a choose your own adventure kid, so
Well,
it
that
really
was
really speaks to me.
same.
Yeah.
I love those. And to me, Twine is kind of like the video game version of those books.
Exactly.
So you get the whole bundle for 130.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's everything.
All these are the ebooks. How many
Yeah,
books?
we've got a paperback bundle as well.
Wait, how many
If
books
on a
is this
different page.
total? Does it say?
So,
One plus 33 plus, also it's 33 plus two
plus
anthologies.
two, like so in the ebooks, we've got two digital anthologies, these kind of bonus books. Um, and so yeah, that's that. And then the two new ones that were not listed here are EverQuest and Untitled Goose Game.
Oh, I like the number system here.
Yeah, isn't
This
that
will drive you crazy if you're like, oh, I got 20 and 22. I don't have 21. Uh-oh.
yes. Yeah, I love the shelf. Love to see them stacked up against each other like
Yeah, I bet you do.
that.
Oh, yeah, like,
So,
okay, I've taken up enough of your time.
oh, this is great. I like seeing you browsing just the way like a casual customer would. You know, these are the parts that I don't see. So thanks for the screen sharing.
Yeah, I should get, I think Day of the Tentacle. I've never, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is like the one of them that I've never played. I've just
Yeah,
played.
I came to it
I
late.
haven't ever played it all the way through.
Yeah, that was one came to super late in adulthood, and played the 3DS version, which I recommend. If you're gonna go back to it, see if you can play that one. There's some nice quality of life changes.
You waited till number 7 for yours. That's interesting.
I wrote the Majora one too, though. Yeah,
Oh, you wrote that one?
yeah, yeah. I did wait. Yeah, I had the idea for the press way before I had the idea for Bible Adventures. I was kind of just digging around, like, okay, I really want to write one. Wanted the right story.
I remember what was the one that came before the Ocarina
Yeah, yeah.
time? That game was just life-changing.
It was awesome.
I mean, wow.
I mean, that game really made Majora possible because they built that entire. They built all those assets. I think they were reusing some like Super Mario 64 stuff originally, but obviously like built it out from there. And so much of what you see in Majora's Mask is just like brilliantly repurposed and tweaked existing assets from Ocarina.
I got a drop of the Rapper.
Yeah. Was
Got
that
it.
it? Was that one you played?
Yeah, this was what, Dreamcast? What was that called?
So, PS1 was the
PS1. I
main
remember
way
hearing
this one
about
came
it.
out.
I've
One of
seen some
the
videos on it.
original influential rhythm games, and
Oh, okay.
you're just tapping on your controller, but alongside these really fun, goofy cartoon rap songs. Yeah, Mike Schollers is a great writer. It very very happy with how that book turned out.
Wow, there's a wealth of knowledge here. I don't know what Salt and Cuddly is.
Yeah, that's our most obscure game that we've ever done. And it's
Right, the
harder it's harder to get people to read it for that
so
reason.
nauseatingly gory that it came with a barf bag.
Yeah.
How could I not have heard of this?
Well, it was ZX Spectrum, so Americans
Oh,
like us. That was not ZX Spectrum was not on my radar at all. So that was another book where I was just enjoying learning about this whole scene in particularly England, but then also it expanded into Eastern Europe that I knew just about nothing about. And but it allowed for these kind of hobbyist developers to make their own games, and for a short time, some of those got rich quick and
yeah,
built,
I've seen some of
entire
those,
game companies off of that.
like the Jet Set Willie guy.
Jet Set Willie, yeah. Jet Set
Uh,
Willie was, I think, the biggest one.
I think Jeff, the Camels guy, that Jeff,
Camels?
the Attack of the Mutant Camels.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, that guy. He's got.
Nice.
I can't think of his name. Jeff something or another.
Yeah.
But he's part of that Digital Eclipse. I think it's Mintner, maybe.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Mintner. He's kind of a crazy guy. But yeah, that was a fascinating scene in Britain at the time.
That would be a cool undertaking for somebody like Digital Eclipse if like they could just round up as many of those ZX Spectrum games as possible and just put them out, ZX50, ZX100, whatever it is. It just give us a catalog, and it would be the first time so many of us have played all of
These
them.
are some crazy games. I remember I got some of them they were adapted to the Commodore 64. And my dad was this voracious pirate. So
Oh,
we
cool.
just get all these weird games all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's one called Rockstar Ate My Hamster.
Whoa.
I
So
think
was he bringing back the like multi-carts, the legally dubious multi-carts and that kind of thing?
this was all discs.
Oh, gotcha.
I think it was cassette tapes originally over there.
Yeah, that's so weird to me that a game would be loaded from a cassette tape onto a computer. If you're lucky, it gets it right the first time. It might mess up. You try
A
again.
neat period there where your music was on cassette and your games are on cassette. It
Yeah,
never happened. Well, I guess we're kind of back to that now in a
I
way.
never got to experience the game on cassette. Missed
Oh, you
out
never
entirely. Yeah,
no cassettes for you, data sets. I think
yeah,
well, you could probably find an old data set somewhere.
yeah.
Terror of a
Put it all together.
error.
Yeah, get a bunch of outdated hardware and have some fun.
Yeah, I don't have a tape player. That's not an era I look back on with fondness.
No, the
I mean, the discs
the
are
vinyl
bad.
collectors haven't shown up for the cassette tapes. I think with good
I
reason.
don't know if those don't tapes like lose their
Yeah, I think so.
data after a
Well, they're
while.
they're very sensitive.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if those would still work even.
Yeah.
But anyway, we could talk forever.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Gabe. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm going to
Yeah.
definitely keep you in mind. Maybe have you back on and do some more books. We could
Oh
do
yeah, that'd be great. If you
updates.
ever want to chat with some of the some of the authors too, a lot of good
Oh,
smart people. So
definitely. Yeah, I might take you
yeah.
up on that.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good day. Happy New Year's.
Yeah. You too.
And that's all for this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that. A lot of great stuff in the pipes. Some great interviews coming up, including Ken St. Andre of Tunnels and Trolls and Wasteland fame. So if you got some questions for Ken, put them in the show notes. Be happy to consider at least putting those to Ken when I finally get him on. Really looking forward to that a little bit later this week, actually. As always, I want to thank you very, very, very much for supporting this show. We've made it to 2025. Can you believe it? I really want to thank you for supporting this show on Patreon. It makes a huge difference. It's basically kept all this stuff in production. All these interviews, the ones coming up, some bright minds, some fun takes, interesting people like Gabe. So thank you very much. If you're not already a supporter, it's really easy to change that. Just hop over that link in the show notes to the Patreon page and you can give $1. If you can't do that for whatever reason, that's fine. I just appreciate you watching the episodes, liking it, supporting it, maybe telling some friends about it if you like the content of the show. But whatever it is you do to support Matt Chat, thank you for that. And I hope to keep this going for a long time with your generous support. So thank you once again. All right, what about that news from the Matt Cave? All right, let's see. Lots of news, and by the way, if you're a Patreon member, you can hop over to the Discord channel and see all the news as it's coming in. Some of our fabulous on-the-beat reporters there. Let's see. So, what are we chatting about over there? We got Alaloth, Champions of the Four Kingdoms, has released. This is a deep tactical RPG. It gives us a reason to celebrate. Let's see. Fast-paced combat, intricate characters, rich world building, an indie gem set in a dark fantasy world filled with political intrigue and ancient threats. Whether you're in it for the challenging battles or the engaging narrative, it's now on Steam. So check it out. Looks good. I think I was reading that Chris Avalon? I always think about MCA. I had to think for a minute, like, what's his actual name? But anyway, apparently he had something to do with this. So you can check that out. Then we got a couple of sad items here. I hate to kind of do this with the first episode of 2025, but what can you do? It's not always sad, I think, to give proper honor and tribute to someone who's passed away. So I look at it more like that, kind of a celebration or honor, I guess, for their achievements, more so than just focusing on the tragic side. Of course, we always want to be supportive of their friends and family who missed them. But anyway, first up we have Donald Bitzer, the plasma screen pioneer. Also, yes, Bitzer's groundbreaking work in the 60s revolutionized plasma screens. In the 60s? Wow. He also pioneered the Plato system, which is the reason this came to mind, because I have a colleague here who knows I love the Plato, like the philosopher, old computer system, very revolutionary technology, with a lot of the very first computer role-playing games ever came out on this system. Not many people know about it, unfortunately. Let's see, he also was inducted into the Inventors Hall of Fame with a legacy spanning technology, education, and entertainment. So, rest in peace, Donald Bitzer. And then also, and this is even maybe sadder, a bit younger gentleman by the name of Gordon Ma-Ung, a tech journalist icon. So people had posted about this. Passed away at the age of 58. So that's, I don't know how old you are, but doesn't seem that old to me at all. It seems very young and very sad. But he was a leading voice in hardware journalism, known for sharp analysis and passion for tech, co-host of the Full Nerd podcast, where he shared insights on technologies and advancements in PC hardware and gaming. Over 30 years in the gaming industry. So I know a lot of people are sad about this. So, what can you say? All we can do is honor their legacy at this point and be thankful for all the hard work they did and the enjoyment that they shared with us. So, rest in peace, Gordon Ma-Ung. All right. Let's wrap it up with a quotation. I should have probably put something happier there towards the end, but what can you do? Here's a quote by Marcus Garvey. This is a Jamaican activist and visionary who championed cultural pride, education, and the preservation of history. He lived from 1887 to 1940. And I thought this was a great quotation for this episode. It goes something like this. A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Ponder on that. I'll see you guys next time.
The golden rule. He who has the goal makes the rule.